So, has anyone else ever heard of this Super Mario fella? Back when I was a wee Corbophone, I'd fill my waking hours with fun activities like hitting things with sticks, witnessing the 2008 financial crash, eating berries off trees, and, most obsessively, dicking around with video games. Uncontestedly, though, there was one that stood above everything else in intensity and longevity. Him. This buffoonish man and his whimsical adventures had an iron grip on my psyche for many of my youthful years, which no doubt is a sentiment held by many others, and much discussion has been had around YouTube about the joys and pains of growing up on the Galaxy games, Mario Kart Wii, the new soups, and more. So I'd like to contribute a little and throw my hat in the ring. There are 4-ish Mario-adjacent games from the Wii and DS era that I see far less chatter about, games that made their own, sometimes craterous impacts on my skull, and having revisited each recently, I wanted to be a little selfish and explore my nostalgia for them, with some commentary on how I think they hold up. It is to these games that I offer the moniker of the Four Horsemen, and over the next few videos in this mini-series, I will unravel the tale of each Pale Rider, starting with the first, War. This game was ridiculously nostalgic to open up again. Be prepared to hear me say this a lot. So, to start, biographical information. The wiki for Mario Sports Mix says it came out in 2010 on the Wii, of course, and was developed by Square Enix, who have only developed 2 other games under the Mario IP, Mario Hoops 3 on 3, a game this one shares some DNA with, and perhaps more iconically, Super Mario RPG, which is such a strange assortment of games to have worked on, if I'm being honest. Funnily enough, the development section of the wiki goes out of its way to call out Reggie for lying about this game being the first time Mario plays basketball, hockey, and volleyball, since those sports appeared in the aforementioned Hoops 3 on 3. Weird for him to forget about that when talking about Sports Mix, and in some Mario Party minigames. This is the real reason he had to retire in disgrace, by the way. But Sports Mix... what? Oh my god. I'm going to say it slowly this time. But Sports Mix itself? What's the deal? Okay. It seems like it was a relatively successful game monetarily. Like, it made it to number 40 of the Wii's top-selling games, and needless to say, a lot of people had a Wii. But since I never see anyone talk about it nowadays, I'm gonna assume people are unfamiliar. The game opens with a silly little cutscene of meteorological disaster befalling the Mushroom Kingdom, with the weird sports gems found in the aftermath becoming prizes to be won in related tournaments. And that's really as far as the game goes to set up any kind of story. After that, you just take on the 3 cups that each sport offers until, gasp, the ninja, white mage, and black mage steal the insert sport here trophy, and you must defeat them to return it and reclaim the insert sport here gem. The game is pretty clearly built with party play in mind, so any campaign content is a bit limited, not to mention ridiculously easy at first. As far as said party content goes, though, there's a pretty good selection to pick from, with the arguable default slate of Mario spin-off characters you'd expect, 9-ish stages for each sport, most of which are the same location but laid out differently to match that sport, and some party modes as extras. The characters themselves have little classes with stats. It's real cute, and each stage is more than just a skin, changing important factors of a match like the goalie in hockey, the team divider line thingy in dodgeball, and even dumber gimmicky shit like a train that runs through the middle of the stage. As for moment-to-moment gameplay, it'd probably be better to run down each sport individually before circling back around. And it might be good to clarify up top here that I'm definitely not reviewing these games because I don't think I could be reasonably unbiased, but I'm still going to stand by what I see as some good design choices, you know? So first, basketball, because that's Mario's sport, I guess, and he gets to go first. Games are broken into 2 halves of like 3 minutes each where... Am I explaining basketball? You know basketball, come on. This is where I think some of the hidden complexity of this game comes into view, because there's a surprisingly high skill ceiling to be found here. Offensively and defensively, there's a lot of options and counterplay. Like, say your opponent is running up to dunk, then you can do a guard to stop that dunk if you're in their way. However, they can then do a layup to bypass your guard, which doesn't guarantee scoring like a dunk, but if you predict that layup, you can do this little swipe move to counter it. but the swipe doesn't counter the dunk, and the dunker can actually hold the dunk for a moment to wait out your defense altogether. Not to mention you can pass a dunk to a nearby enemy while in the air. So like, yeesh, a lot of split-second nail biters in this one. The neutral of basketball, which I'm only calling it because my brain has been ruined by years of competitive Smash Bros, is mostly just passing the ball between your team or trying to steal it from the other. And honestly, it isn't quite as interesting or strategic as the what I suppose would be the advantage and disadvantage states. Pringle is now joining me. You want to say hello, Pringle? She rubbed up on the mic. That's about as good as we're going to get. Anyways, hockey is IMO, the most complicated among the four. It's also on a 2-timed halves model and is like a more breakneck version of basketball. There's many little nuances I got a feel for, like fine-tuning the aim of your shot, the slipperiness of the controls because of the ice, and how preventing your puck from getting stolen is easier if your back is turned to the attacker. There's more of that neutral game sauce, where moving towards the enemy goal feels like a dance between you and your opponents, with smart passes and quick moves securing a chance to take a shot on the goal. Most maps have NPC goalies on each side, and these guys aren't pushovers. They will beat you up if you get too close, and are mostly good at stopping the puck, though I'm sure it'd be annoying if they were too good at it. There's just a lot more aggression here, where you can steal the puck back and forth several times a second, and I really couldn't tell you how cool it feels to perfectly thread a shot between the whole enemy team. It's baller. Dodgeball is a really fun and kind of random inclusion to this game. It was always my favorite as a kid. Each player has a health bar of all things, and winning requires knocking out the enemy team twice. Catching and throwing the ball is really simple and kind of repetitive back and forth, but I don't think there's as much room for complexity as basketball and hockey. You can do these cheeky little fake outs and team attacks, but otherwise your main mix-up option is leveraging your NPC Yoshi or knocked out teammates in the enemy's backline, who can get some good shots in. Honestly, I've never played a real-life game of dodgeball that had something like this, and I'm kind of glad because it sounds terrifying to be surrounded like that. Granted, most IRL matches of dodgeball I've played have like 10 balls flying around, and this game only has the one. Whatever. Still, that's honestly about all there is to cover mechanically. I think what endeared me to it so much when I was younger was just how close quarters it was. And I've also always just kind of hated timed competitions. I'd rather have a concrete goal, like reducing a health bar, I guess. Volleyball was the sport I dreaded the most as a kid, and nowadays I kind of get why. The objective is to win 2 sets of 15 points, but not always, as if both teams have 14 points, the goal gets pushed back to 16, and then if they have 15, it becomes 17, and so on. Which, as you can expect, leads to some really prolonged situations when playing with other people or against a good bot. When your team receives a ball, it must be rallied between each other before being returned. And there's a little bit of mind games here where you can do stuff like jump blocking a shot or little fake out spikes and such, but it's mostly the same runaround each time. It also has weird moments of, I don't want to call them errors, but you see what I mean, right? For both the NPCs and us real players, there's moments when the net or the ball just doesn't cooperate. So while each sport is pretty structurally different from one another, they each have a few underlying mechanics that would make sense to cover. First would be items, which can be used to stun the enemy or power up your current shot or throw or serve or what have you. And these are an expected Mario branded party game edition that just add another small layer of complexity to everything, especially since you can only have one item at a time and so have to manage your resources a little. None of this applies to coins. These are fucking evil. You see, coins and items are found either in these relatively uncommon item panels or just dumped on you in certain stages, and when you score, the number of coins you have is added onto that. This means you could, say, knock out someone at full health in dodgeball instantly, let you win a set of volleyball at 4 points, or hugely expand your lead in basketball or volleyball. Fuck, I meant hockey. Or hugely expand your lead in basketball or hockey. This all comes to a violent head in Bowser Jr.'s Boulevard, the most sinister, sinful stage in this game. See, every variant of this stage has these spots where if you score when standing on them, you can add to or multiply the value of that score by crazy amounts, which is then modified by the number of coins you have. All that means getting into situations like this. The -9 is the result of the spaces that actually subtract from your score. Another underpinning element are stats, which split the roster into little classes, and these have more of an impact than I expected going in. It's like the Mario Kart principle, or at least the Mario Kart 8 principle, I don't know if it matters much now, where the stats aren't so important that you can ignore them if you just want to play your fave and not worry, but they can be useful to consider when team building. Fast characters are always useful, and powerful characters are really good in hockey and volleyball, but I actually had to look up what technical characters do, so needless to say I didn't use them very much. Other than items and stats, you also have special moves. Special moves are almost always a free point mechanic, kind of like some games that have free kill mechanics. That's a little disappointing. You can intercept them a lot of the time, but I don't know. It would be more interesting if there were gradations of special abilities and they could be used defensively as well as offensively. Then they'd be a more interesting resource to manage and you'd actually have to think about when to use it instead of just doing it brainlessly the moment you get it. It is cool how each character has a unique special though, and the identity of that special is carried through in each sport even if it works a little differently. It would have been easy enough to give them all a generic laser beam or something and just change the color, so the little touches are nice. Actually, speaking of, this game kind of impressed a lot of the identity of these Mario characters onto me when I was younger, like Wario being stanky as fuck, and how him having a factory stage added to his characterization as a greedy capitalist, or Luigi using the poltergust for his special, or Mario using fire powers, which I was so gung-ho about back then. Thank you, Mario Bros. I know not everyone cares about the cohesion of the characterization and iconography of Mario characters, but I do. I mean, it's fun to see parts of this wider universe being used here, like Waluigi Pinball, or Luigi's Mansion being maps. If I had to bash the core experience for anything, it might have to be the Waggle. It's hard to get around this one, and it feels like a low blow on paper because it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But there are a lot of moves in almost every sport that need one or multiple swings of the remote, and you do it so often that it gets really irritating after a while. I don't think it'd be as frustrating if the motion controls had more precision to them, but I guess Waggle had to earn its name somehow. Some of the frustration can be alleviated by using a horizontal controller, but I'm a real gamer, okay? I use a nunchuck. Now, so far the only real intriguing or compelling game design I've mentioned is just the surprising mechanical depth in some of the sports. But there's a lot, or well, at least some, extra stuff under the hood worth mentioning. Beyond the unlockable maps, there's also 6 unlockable characters and a lot of skins. The 6 characters are the Square Enix guests, with 5 Final Fantasy guests and my guy Slime, all of which range from trivial to ridiculous to get. I looked over some of the critiques and reviews of this game while researching this video, and a lot of people lambasted it for low difficulty, which is definitely valid for most of the game, but you see, after completing the final cup of each sport, you unlock not only the hard mode for that sport, but you also get a chance to battle the secret final boss of the game. The reason it made such a deep impact on me as a kid. After being consumed by a portal, you are greeted by the last Final Fantasy character featured, Behemoth, and a great battle begins. Here you have to use the mechanics of every sport to win, like rallying meteors, dodging, even using items and specials. To be honest, when replaying it recently, it felt like that one SpongeBob gif, but as a kid you have to understand how nuts it was to discover this for the first time with my brother, having no idea how such an out-of-place looking thing had gotten into my wholesome Mario. The feeling was like a lesser version of that part in Odyssey with the dragon. Weirdly enough though, this still isn't all of what the game has to offer, as there's also a ridiculously tough Star Road found in the hard mode. These are detours you can take during a tournament that leads to a series of special challenges where you'll play a round of a given sport with crazy stipulations like the enemy can't score even once, or you can only take one hit in dodgeball, which, now that I'm thinking about it, is kind of the same thing. But if you fail any of those challenges in that sequence, you get booted out and have to try again. Honestly, I'm really glad I'm not going for total completion in any of these videos because this one would be kind of hellish. The only thing you can even really get from these are alternate skins, some of which are kind of cool, like for the Final Fantasy characters, but others are like Yellow Yoshi. And hey, no diss to Yellow Yoshi, but for all that work, I don't know. So why do I talk about what is considered, generally at least, to be a critically unimpressive title that is closing in on 2 decades old? Yeesh. Other than revisiting it for my own nostalgia, I think it's a shame that this game just faded into the night. Is it perfect? No. But I like to imagine what a possible sequel would look like, taking the already strong core mechanics and ideas and just building off of them. Most of Mario's party titles aren't made in-house, so this isn't an anomaly in that regard. And if we let every game trying new things fall to the wayside without another chance to succeed, we'd lose out on a lot of great games. My only guess for what might stop another one from going forward is just an IP or licensing thing. Like if Square doesn't want to do another, then their hands are tied, but realistically the only Square stuff in there are the Final Fantasy characters and slime. Also, Nintendo and Square probably have a stronger relationship now than they did when this game released, so this seems like a nothing burger, as some are apt to say. But let's talk sequel talk. So far the roster is pretty small, even with the unlockable characters, so let's get some more guys in here, come on. A modern game could have added in the more modern staples of the Mario crew, like Rosalina, Paulina, and Peepa, of course. New maps or party modes would be expected, but the real questions lie in the prospect of new sports. I get the feeling if Nintendo ever did make a sequel, they just used 4 entirely new sports, which would be dumb but entirely on brand. I feel you could get more bang for your buck and add another sport or two while building on the existing ones some. Many of these sports, really all of them except basketball, aren't likely to ever get their own dedicated spin-off games like racing or golf or tennis, so this sports mix hypothetical series could act as a repository for many more, not bite-sized, but maybe appetizer-sized sports experiences. Really, it'd just be nice to see more going on with volleyball and dodgeball specifically, then tack on like cricket and American football or something, and you got an experience Nintendo would probably feel comfortable charging $70 for. New minigames would be killer. A more intricate campaign sounds awesome, though I do recognize this is a couch party game first and foremost. New mechanics like perks for making certain teams or equipment, maybe even rewards and stuff to work for. Padding, but well done, if you would. In an even more ideal world, we would also get more bosses using multiple sports like Behemoth and other crossover characters, but I fear I'm just slowly working around to making Super Smash Sports Mix, so I think I'll cut myself off before we get to that point. And that'll probably do it for Mario Sports Mix. I'm glad the chance to relive this one just sort of fell into my lap and I got to appreciate, as an adult with more developed tastes, a game that meant a lot to me as a kid. If you ever get the chance to play it for free or cheap, or if the universe aligns to grant us a remaster one day, I'd suggest giving it a go with a friend or two. And if you're in the same age bracket as me and played it growing up, let me know your own experiences with it below. Now the next game of our Horsemen list I plan to cover is Super Sluggers, so don't expect any surprises there. The script for that video is mostly done, so here's hoping I get it out in the near future, especially since I finished this one a lot faster than I expected. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and have a good day.